Welcome to the Thyroid Fixer podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Amy, and we're diving deep into the world of hormones, especially for all you fierce women in perimenopause and menopause, and everyone struggling with hypothyroidism. So if you are battling weight gain, you're feeling like shedding those pounds is an impossible feat, if you're dealing with plummeting energy levels, gut-wrenching fatigue, or a libido that seems to have left town, then you're in the right place. And let's not even start on the hair loss. If these symptoms are sounding all too familiar, you have found your tribe. My goal is to educate, empower, and shake up your world. Remember, I want you to embrace every inch of that badass woman that you truly are. So if you're ready to dive in and fix things, let's go. So this is going to be a game changer for you, and you can probably hear the excitement in my voice. The latest introduction, the latest member of the family to the Fixer line is Metabolism Fixer. And this, oh my God, I formulated this just for all my people out there that need to lose weight, that need help in the weight loss department, that can't lose weight no matter what they do, that feel like they have a slow metabolism, and that might be thinking of trying all those peptides out there, you know, the Beverly Hills soccer mom drug of choice for weight loss peptides. Or even if you're on them already and you're like, man, these are really expensive and I'm still not losing weight, add in Metabolism Fixer. Here's what I did. I took the power of T2, which increases your basal metabolic rate while you are sitting there watching Netflix. You're burning fat while you're watching Netflix. I combined it with a very unique patented ingredient called Suppressa. Suppressa has multiple clinical trials backing its efficacy in reducing your appetite, decreasing snacking, and providing way more control over your food intake. It is amazing. We also see improved emotional well-being, just decreased food cravings all around, reduced hunger, and weight management. Add on top of that, we have green tea extract. We have purple forest purple tea extract, both of which affect the metabolism in a very positive way without the jitters of normal fat burning supplements out there from the 1980s and 90s, right? The ones that made you feel like you're having a heart attack. You will not have that in any of my supplements, Thyroid Fixer or Metabolism Fixer. But Metabolism Fixer, ooh, yeah, we kicked it up a notch. It is in powder form, so you can drink it through your day. It's going to flavor your water. We got orange crush and refreshing citrus. I love them both. It is going to keep you under control all day long. So you throw a couple scoops in your water bottle in the morning, throw a scoop or two in your water bottle throughout the day. You will have fat burning and appetite control the entire day for what? An eighth of a price of the peptides? Oh my God, you can't go wrong. So grab some Metabolism Fixer today. Please let me know how you do on it. I am super excited for you. Super excited. Y'all need to learn how to cook a little bit more healthy in your own kitchen instead of going out to eat all the time and using things like organ meats. And don't turn it off and tell me that you tried liver and that you don't like it. I understand. I did that too. And I don't like it either. But using organ meats can really kind of hold a key to up-level your health and maybe even take your thyroid function to the next level. No, really. If you haven't dove into the world of organ meats and how they can help you, especially those with anemia and low ferritin, maybe you can't get your ferritin up with supplements. Maybe you're taking boatloads of organ supplements and you're not really seeing a change. Listen to this episode because my guest today is James Berry. He's a culinary chef. I mean, who doesn't love talking to a chef? I'd like to have a chef cook for me as well. But hey, if we can learn some things that we can implement, even better. So as a private chef, James has cooked for Tom Cruise, George Clooney, Gerard Butler, Sean Puffy Combs, Barbara Streisand, John Cusack. I mean, my God. I mean, most of them look kind of kick ass, especially as they age. So James is doing something right. He's doing something right. He's published a cookbook. So it is called the Naked Foods Cookbook. And he's just a kick-ass dude. Oh, he also co-authored the recipes in Margaret Floyd's book, Eat Naked. How about that? And we're going to talk about pluck, which is an organ-based seasoning that you can use. So we're going to tie all this together, up-leveling your health and your thyroid function, cooking for yourself and how that can help with weight loss and help you be more healthy. And you're getting it all from an expert. So organ meats, eating well, cooking from home, all the things that we're going to talk about today on the show with James. James, welcome. I gave you your introduction in the beginning, but I'm so happy to have you on.
Thank you for having me, Dr. Amy. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely. So you're very intriguing. I mean, you've really, you're a professional chef. So you teach people would you call it home kitchen mastery? Like we're going to talk about that today because a lot of people they struggle with cooking healthy at home. I mean, many of us with our busy schedules, we're eating out. It just gets too overwhelming and confusing. But then you also tie in the benefits of organ meats, which it's kind of like I know on a surface level, but I really want to talk today about how organ meat specifically can really help with hormones and thyroid and weight and inflammation and all the things that people struggle with that I don't think the general public knows.
I agree. I mean, when I kind of went down the organ path as a chef, I mean, anyone can do this. You can look up what are the most nutrient dense foods, and there'll be a list and you'll see comparables of like kale, beef, salmon, blueberries, spinach. And if it's a good list, which most should have this on there, it will say beef liver. And it's just amazing. It's like it knocks everything out of the water. Like everything they're measuring, there's at least every food has got something that it doesn't measure. You know what I mean? Like it's just not on there of the vitamins and minerals that they're checking for most nutrient dense. But liver checks every box. So, and it's not even just like a little bit more iron, than spinach or whatever, or a little bit more magnesium. It's like a lot. So it really is sometimes like 7 to 12 times, you know what I mean? It's insane, the numbers. And you think about it, it's like our ancestors did it. And when I'm talking ancestors, I'm talking our grandparents. It's not that long ago that people were eating organ meats. But there's a stigma with organ meats that started, I mean, I would say it kind of started before World War II, but there's this idea that organ meats are poor people's food. So after World War II, when we had soldiers, so when during World War II, we had women who were starting to work outside of the home. The men came home from the men and women. Obviously, there were women as well abroad for the war, but people came home. And now you had two people working from home because the people, the women who started working from home didn't want to stop, right? So you had more income coming into the household, and people with that kind of came this expectation of like, well, we can afford the roast beef. We don't need to buy beef liver or whatever it was, right? Because the reality is, and this is still true to this day, we always talk about quality, right? Grass fed, grass finished. That's what we talk about when we talk about beef.
Right.
Grass-fed, grass-finished, right? Well, anyone that goes grocery shopping for 100% grass-fed beef knows, a ribeye can cost $25.99 a pound. You know what I mean? It's insanely expensive, right? Well, that same animal, same quality of animal, same sourcing of animal will have a tongue, a liver, a kidney, and they're all like way less. Like the tongue is sometimes $7 a pound, the liver sometimes 12 or less. I mean, like everything is at a lower price point. So even to this day, organ meats are cheaper than muscle meat. Okay. But something happened when we kind of moved towards buying these more expensive cuts of meat is we lost the taste for the organ meats because they do have a different taste than muscle meat. They have a different texture, which means that they cook differently. So you have to almost have a slightly different culinary knowledge for them. We lost that. And then the third is we kind of lost how to source them. So when you tie all this together, it kind of makes sense that we lost the ability to really understand the importance, but also how to incorporate it in our diet. So for me, that was what my mission was how can I get the most nutrient-dense food on the planet into our diets and solve those three things? And that's why I created Pluck, which I'm sure we'll talk about later. But that to me is the key. Is as a chef, I look at people, I look at us as very human. We're not perfect. We gravitate towards comfort foods. We're very emotional eaters. And so how can I support that humanity in us to make better choices and or eat those really nutrient-dense foods, but in really easy and delicious ways? Because that's to me, like if you solve that, if you solve kind of making comfort foods more healthy, now you can really meet people where they are versus trying to convert them to doing something that's completely out of their comfort zone, that requires new habits, and that probably means they're going to fall off the wagon with it.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And that's what most people do. Okay. So when we're talking organ meats, I'm just going to kind of jump around based on what you just said. Most people don't want to eat liver. I've tried it. So I'm a hunter and I have tried keeping some of the organs because I know that it's good for me. I know, and we're going to dive into all the benefits, but like in my head, I know it's good for me. But then I try to cook it and it's just not that good. It's not that good.
Yeah. So there's different ways to incorporate it into your diet. Now, are you hunting elk or what are you?
Well, that's on the bucket list, but right now I just hunt white-tailed deer.
Okay. Okay. Similar though, taste. So it's going to be a little gamier no matter what, because you're dealing with a wild animal. But in general, how I recommend people ease into organ meats is you focus on a couple points. So one is you want to remove the kind of stigma. And a lot of times when it looks like an organ, we think about our own humanity, where like our own mortality, you know what I mean? Like you see a heart and you're like, oh, it's too similar to my heart. It makes me think of my heart, or the liver and the sliminess of it makes me think of my own liver, so you immediately want to kind of get rid of that. Now you're hunting, but either way, you're going to freeze the product, right?
Right.
And same if you're buying cow organs from farmer's market, it comes to you frozen. So I always recommend people leave it frozen. And one of the reasons why is because what's overwhelming about it is when it's defrosted. When it's frozen, it's just a hunk of ice, really, like kind of meat, frozen hard substance. It's not intimidating.
Yeah.
So keep it frozen. And then what you can do is you can literally grate it. So take that organ. Now I'm mostly talking about liver. You can do this potentially with kidney, but I'll go into heart in a little bit, but let's just focus on the liver. So I would, with the liver, leave it frozen. And then when you're doing any ground meat, whether it's the deer ground meat or whether it's beef or turkey, it doesn't really matter what species. You just take that liver of whatever species you have and grate it just a little bit, just grate it right into the ground meat and mix it in, and then put it right back in the freezer. So it's never defrosting. It's not overwhelming. And you're keeping the ratio of the muscle meat higher than the organ. So then you don't even taste it.
That is brilliant. I never thought of that. I swear to God, never thought of that. That is brilliant. Just to get that little bit. Because you think, oh, okay, I have to sit here and eat like the chunks of liver in order to get the benefits, but you really don't. Just putting it in little by little, even a couple times a week is enough, right?
Totally. Well, I always try to tell people, it's like, imagine back in the day, we're a tribe, and I'm talking Paleolithic times. We're a tribe because that's what a lot of dieters, a lot of guru influencers now, that's how we talk about food, is we want to get closest to how we previously ate, because modern food is technically not how our bodies were designed, right? All this preservatives and shelf stable food and ultra processed food is not how we were designed to eat. So when we talk about, pre-industrial revolution, and even before that, we're talking about, like I said, Paleolithic times. Like imagine we're a tribe and it's 23 people, maybe. It's not a huge tribe, right? But it's big then. Well, we just took a week to kill an animal, okay? Huge efforts. We got that animal back to our hearth area and we're celebrating. And how many hearts does that animal have? It has one. How many livers? It has one. It's like, it's got 2 little kidneys. Like it doesn't have a lot of organs. And so if we're a tribe of 23, who's going to get that liver? Well, it's going to be the people that are pregnant. It's going to be the elderly who might need it more. It's going to be the people in need the most, right? So most of us are going to be getting other parts of the animal. We might be getting the spleen. We might be getting tongue. We might be getting ovaries, testicles. Like the focus is still on whole animal eating. But I just find it curious that right now, when it's very popular to talk about organ meats, and everyone just focuses on the liver and they say, oh, eat as much of this as you can. But I'm like, well, if we're looking at how our bodies were created, we probably didn't get that much liver. We really just didn't, because you're dividing it, right? And most people probably didn't get it, but we got other parts of the animal. So I always try to refocus people's attention on whole animal versus just a singular muscle meat or a singular organ meat. And I think when we look at it from a whole animal perspective, all these organs, they have an abundance of minerals. So like, for example, the spleen, we always talk about the iron in liver. Like we say how high the iron is. It's heme iron. It's very absorbable, very easy for the body to stimulate, great for people that are anemic, great for hormonal balance, because when you menstruate, you lose a lot of blood. So it's really, it's really great on many regards. But guess what? The spleen is higher in iron than the liver,
Okay.
And so every organ has something, and they all have B12. Every B vitamin is found in organ meat. So, and B vitamins, of course, are fantastic for thyroid hormone conversion. I mean, so we all need B vitamins. And the beautiful thing I love, so a lot of times I always tell people this, like when you get supplements, recommended supplements from your health practitioner or your doctor, they say, oh, we'll eat these ones with food, right? That's because they're fat soluble. Mm-hmm. Well, when you're getting these vitamins and minerals from food, you don't have to worry about that. You're already eating it, right? So I love the fact that we can get this abundance of nutrients and vitamins, and we're getting it from Mother Nature. We're getting it from a whole food source, and it's all perfectly designed. Like, it's balanced so that, like, for example, it helps with iron to have, what is it, magnesium, I think. No, is it I always get
vitamin C. Vitamin C helps for the body to absorb iron.
Right. And then, but with magnesium, I think it's potassium.
Yes.
Right. Yep. So there's cofactors, right? There's these vitamins and minerals that actually work together to support absorbability. Well, they're all there. Like, they're literally there, designed as Mother Nature intended. So they are the most absorbable form. And yet, really, we're leaving it all on the table. When we slaughter animals in this country, we are regarding most of the organs go to the pet industry, or they actually get tossed and they go to agricultural, or they get minced up and put back in the ground to help, remineralize the soil. I mean, it really varies, but but what's sad is most of it is not for human consumption. And yet we turn around and we're spending, $40 billion on supplements. And I'm like, it's right there. It's literally right there for the taking.
Exactly. And to kind of piggyback off what you said earlier about anemia, many of my patients are anemic. Many of my audience members, listeners, are anemic because, number one, of course, I won't go down this rabbit hole too deeply, but as you know, there's the standard lab value range where we say, okay, here's your iron panel, here's ferritin, your iron stores, and you're falling in that standard lab value range, so you're quote unquote normal. But in the thyroid world, especially with Hashimoto's, we like to see that ferritin number really up, like around 80 to 100. Sometimes with Hashimoto's, we even say, oh, let's get it like closer to 100, 110, something like that. And many, I mean, I've seen a ton of labs, and I always see that ferritin. I would say 95% of the time, I see that ferritin number low, even when the rest of the iron panel looks optimal. So what do? We put someone on ferrous bisglycinate or an iron supplement. And I'm all for that. Sometimes that's all that's needed. But now in talking to you, I'm thinking of those people that they're like, I'm taking 1, sometimes 2 iron pills a day. I'm eating red meat. My ferritin's not getting higher. And ferritin being low, that can actually mimic hypothyroid symptoms. So someone can be gaining weight, low energy, their hair's falling out. And it's like, no, your thyroid's fine, or your thyroid is trying to work better, but it needs the iron to do so. So now in talking to you, I'm thinking if we just added in organ meats, or, again, we will get around to pluck, because that's kind of, I'm saving that, folks, because this might be a really easy way for you to add the organ meats. We're just saying, but no, but if people would just add in the organ meats, that might be enough in combination with the iron supplement that they're taking, or alone, maybe by itself, to get that number up, to really alleviate symptoms and at the same time help their thyroid work better.
I'm a big believer in the most natural source of minerals and vitamins you can get. I've been a chef, professional chef for over 20 years. I have seen trends come and go, but the one to me that is the mainstay is real food. And so while we can't fully, when I first got out of culinary school, this was a hot topic for me was like, oh, do you need to truly supplement? Like, can you get everything you need from real food? And I thought I was really eager at first to say yes, you can get everything from real food, but I quickly realized you can't. It's just because modern life is very stressful. We have toxins in the air, in our soils, in our water. We have the produce that is created in modern agriculture is actually less nutrient dense than it was, and the government's been measuring this every decade, and the soils are depleted, so you create less nutrient food. So there's just the harsh realities of this life, this modern life, result in foods that are not as nutrient dense as they once were, right? So we do have to think about supplementation, and the best is clearly like people working with you, for example, where you get tested and you're really being specific about your needs versus just this generic idea of like, oh, well, I know I'm depleted, so let me just, crapshoot it and like take whatever. It's like, well, I don't recommend people do that. Like, get tested. But if you can get those nutrients from real food, that's the choice. Like, to me, that's the first stop. Like, go there first. And truly, I mean, like, let's break down a couple of the organs, for example. So CoQ10. So, well, let me actually back up. So there's this idea of like supports like, which it's an ancestral concept, but the idea, it's very Native American in philosophy, but basically it's saying that the organ of the animal has the life force and minerals and vitamins of the same organ in you. So for example, the heart of the animal is high in CoQ10, which is also going to support, is an antioxidant that's going to support your heart. It balances cortisol hormone levels, progesterone, melatonin, insulin, DHEA. I mean, it's an incredible. The heart is filled with nutrients and vitamins that equate to your own cardiovascular health. Right. And the same is true with the liver. The liver supports your liver, the detoxification pathways. The thought is also that if you're eating ovaries, they're going to support your ovary health. They're going to, testicles are going to support your testicle health. It's that like supports like. So first of all, that's one thing that I tend to look at, and I'm like, and then I hear stories and they really are fascinating. Like, I was just at this conference recently and someone was telling me, I can't remember if it was them or someone they're close to, but they were having lung issues and they had lasted for months and it wouldn't go away. It was just this nagging chronic lung issue. And they tried everything the doctors couldn't figure out. And then someone had the thought to say, well, what about if you eat lung? Like, this idea of like supports like, what, maybe that would support you. They did that. And 2 days later, it was gone. I've talked to a father who child was born with like a skin kind of rash, had it for years and years, tried everything, couldn't get rid of it. And then they started eating pluck and it went away for their child. You know what I mean? And isn't that interesting? Because pluck has got 5 organs. It's got liver, heart, kidney, spleen, and pancreas. And you might think, well, why does a kid need those, right? Because if we're talking about like supports like, liver and kidney are detoxification, organs, right? So, and a child shouldn't need a detox, but clearly that helped that child because that could have been the issue. The skin is an organ. Maybe they were having issues with elimination pathways that no one had figured out. I don't know, but it's one of those things that when people start to incorporate in their diet, they see these pesky little chronic illness issues or chronic illness, I guess, kind of go away, from fatigue to skin issues to hair loss to these things just quickly kind of like get fixed. And of course, I can't, scientifically tell you, well, this is why, but I do believe that it is that we're not getting the nutrients in our diets and that a lot of times we are taking supplements that are not absorbing.
Yep. Absolutely. And yeah, I mean, I would say that kids probably do need detox these days because of the toxins that are in our environment. And because, going back to what you said earlier, the food sources and the amount of just garbage that is in our food, even if you're eating whole food, but you're not eating the organic and the grass fed, you're still exposed to so much. So I would say that it'd be good for everybody. Now, I mean, there is this big fad out. Do I bring it up? Liver King, right? So
Yeah.
the Liver King basically came out, I don't even know, is this 1, 2 years ago? Got busted because he was taking anabolic steroids for how he looked. It was not just from doing liver tablets or eating like
Yeah, the
organ
raw
based
organs.
supplements, right? But kind of what you said, the liver is really a key point. I mean, it's so loaded with nutrients, the minerals, the iron, the folate, the B12, that I've even seen some people out there that say that they can heal thyroid naturally. They'll say all you need is to eat organ meats and focus on animal protein, and you can actually heal your thyroid naturally. Now, I'm kind of from the camp that's like both and, okay? So if you're coming in with a tanked out thyroid and you're overweight and you're fatigued and you need some T3, let's give you some T3. But yes, at the same time, let's give your body exactly what it needs to help everything work together and to possibly heal your thyroid, but have that thyroid hormone coming in as additional support, so both things work together. But here's the thing with the Liver King, you're buying all these different supplements that cost a boatload, and you don't even know which ones to use. You're kind of throwing darts. You're like, oh, I guess I'll get this one. Oh, this one says spleen, so I guess I'll try that because it's loaded with iron. But it doesn't have to be that complicated or that expensive.
Yeah, well, there's also the issue, and I hear this a lot with people that take organ supplements, is they feel nauseous afterwards. And
Yeah.
that speaks to really what I was talking about earlier, about how if you don't get tested and know exactly what your body needs, it's a crapshoot. You're throwing darts at a wall. And a lot of times people are getting, they're following a bottle. And for example, organ supplements say take 6. Well, how
Yes.
do you know? How does that company know that you need 6 versus I need 6, that person needs 6? Like, we're all bio individuals, and what we need is not known by another company. It's known by your body. Your body knows what it needs. And so that's why I'm a huge fan of kind of distinguishing between swallowing our nutrition versus eating it. And what I mean by that specifically with organ meats is that there's really 2 ways to get organs. You buy them raw and you cook them, or you take organ supplements. Those are the 2 main ways to get them in your diet. Well, when we take those supplements, and now let's use salt as an example. If I put salt on your tongue, your body will tell you immediately, it's instantaneous, whether it wants more or less. And if you try to dip your finger even 2 or 3 times into that salt and put it on your tongue, it will taste different by the 3rd time. Like, your body will be like, oh, this is not good, right? I don't want any more. But if I gave you a salt tablet, you swallow that salt tablet, you don't feel anything for 15, 20 minutes, maybe even longer. And then suddenly you're like, wait, why am I bloated? Oh, I got too much of something. So one is working with your natural biological communication that you innately have, that we've really lost touch with. Bill Schindler, he's a professor of archaeology. He has a great quote called, basically, he says, we are the only species in the world that looks to someone else to tell us what to eat. Like, let that land, right?
Yeah.
We're talking tens of thousands of species, right? There's an enormous amount of species on this world, and we are the only one that doesn't know how to eat for ourselves. So that's how far we are removed from our natural innate knowledge of, because we did have it at one point. We absolutely had it, but we've lost it. And the only way, in my judgment, to get back to it is to eat your food and not swallow it, because you have to remove yourself from your emotions, your emotional state. You have to work on like eating food and not, kind of not hating on yourself for doing it, not putting added pressure onto it, but actually like, eating slowly enough for you to feel what is going inside your body, how it feels, and then use that information to inform you of whether you're going to eat that food again. I think that's really important. Like, people that, and I'm a culprit of this. I'm not trying to point fingers, but like people that eat the entire carton of ice cream, we do that because we're numbing ourselves. Like we don't want to feel, we either want to feel an extreme, we want to feel extreme bloat or just extreme ickiness because that's what we're feeling inside, or we're trying to numb our feelings. But either way, we're not using that information as, how does this product make my body feel and how is it going to change my neck the next time I'm faced with this issue? Like we're not really connecting those dots. We're just kind of numbing out, using it as a vice, and then, repeat next time I'm feeling low, right? Or whatever it is. So I'm a big advocate of like, if you can, like slow down, take even a moment of gratitude before you eat your food, whether that's prayer or just a breath before you eat. Get in this, sit down, don't stand, don't eat walking around, like sit down, be in a parasympathetic state and eat your food one bite at a time. Put your fork or spoon down in between bites and literally feel the food, and realize too that when we slow down, our body will have the time to communicate when it's full, versus like when we go too fast, we overeat. That's when we have to unbutton, our pants or our belt.
Mm-hmm.
And then use that as feedback towards the next time you eat. And hopefully we get to a point where we're no longer dictated by our cravings, but we're more using that as information for sticking to that kind of thrive, the food that helps us thrive, that whole foods kind of agenda where we're eating our foods. And this kind of connects to how you began, which is kitchen mastery, which is ultimately really, in my judgment, the only way to be healthy is to be in control of the ingredients. And that means you have to cook for yourself, or, a loved one is cooking for you, but you can't eat out. Like it's impossible to be healthy and eat out all the time. So all these will factor into you kind of supporting to get back into your body and get back to that innate knowledge that we really do have when you eat food. I mean, the process of, even we eat with our eyes, so the process of seeing the food is really important. Smelling it, it goes in your mouth, the saliva helps to coat it, prepare you for digestion. All that is communication, and you need it.
So the busy person that they're saying, I can't lose weight no matter what I do, but I eat really healthy. But, I'm so busy that we have to eat out like 3-4 times a week. So I'm only home cooking a couple times a week. That actually could be the sticking point of why they're not losing weight, because you can't control what is put in your food or how it's prepared when you're eating out.
Absolutely. I mean, we have to remember restaurants, food manufacturers, when you go to grocery store, they are businesses. They are designed to make money. Yes, they might have the mission of trying to help, but the bottom line is they need to make money to survive. Someone needs to profit. And so one of the main ways a restaurant or a food product will profit is via the ingredients. And you have to use cheap ingredients to make sure that you profit. So you see restaurants using, canola oils or some kind of cheap vegetable oil to fry their food or cook it. You see them using cheap salts, for example. A lot of times in the salad dressings, no one's really using extra virgin olive oil because it's expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And so you see this play out on the grocery aisles as well. A lot of times so when we go through the grocery store and you read the front of the packaging, think of that like a billboard. Okay. So billboard will basically inform you of what it kind of like, it attracts you to the product. So it tries to pull you in, but the part of it that's a little bit more overseen by, I don't know, the FDA or USDA, depending on what the product is the back where you have to list the ingredients. So a lot of times I'll think of, like, I'm thinking of this one product. It's like a dressing. It will say has olive oil in it, and it says that on the outside. But then you're like, well, that's interesting. They didn't say extra virgin olive oil. They said olive oil. And then you turn it around and you realize, and you read on the back and it says, oh, it's a canola oil, olive oil blend. You know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
I would bet you anything that blend is also not 50-50. It's, 90% canola oil and 10% olive oil, because the olive oil is expensive. So you just have to remember that you always have to read ingredients. I always recommend people that they choose things that are ingredients versus have ingredients. So you have to walk the outside aisles of the grocery store. You got to find things that, are the source of making something. And I'll even use like, so dressing, for example, is a really great one to switch for people, because that is where a lot of these hidden kind of preservatives and poor ingredients are found, whether it's in a grocery store or at a restaurant. Really like if you can make this one change, you will probably see your weight kind of melt off just by not eating out as much. But then the other change, or part of that, is then making your own dressings. And the easiest way to make your own dressing is to follow this ratio. Is basically 3-to-1 is the ratio. So 3 parts oil or fat, depending on how you want to look at it, and then 1 part acid or vinegar. So that would mean like, and when we do ratios, it's you choose what it is. It could be a tablespoon, it could be 1/4 of a cup, 1/8 of a cup. It doesn't matter. You just have to keep it the same for both. So let's just say we're using tablespoons. So that would be 3 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil, and then 1 tablespoon of some acid or vinegar. So that could be balsamic, that could be lemon juice, lime juice, it could be champagne vinegar, it could be white vinegar. You choose, but it's 3 parts oil to 1 part acid, and then you just put it in a mason jar and shake. Then you literally just made, as long as you have the ingredients on hand, you made your own dressing that is healthier than anything anyone else is going to give you in 30 seconds.
Yeah, exactly. That's so brilliant.
And you control the ingredients. Like there's nothing there. There's no preservatives. Cause that's the other thing people have to remember is, and this is true for both restaurants and grocery stores, is shelf life. Shelf life makes a product. If you're like, and I'm learning this with Pluck actually. So if your product is something that's perishable or doesn't last very long, you don't have enough time in the grocery store to sell it appropriately. So what happens is anything that doesn't sell gets sent back to you, and then you are charged for it. So you have to pay them for it. And so you technically lose money. So having like food that is perishable is a really hard industry. And so that's why when you go in the middle of the grocery stores, you'll see everything is shelf stable. It's stuff that they have stabilized in there so that things don't separate. They have things that will help, they add vitamin E to it to help freshness, or they do something to make sure that it's able to stay on that shelf for at least a year.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all for profit. It's to ensure that they make money.
That's crazy. I mean, I think it's one of those, if we only knew all the dirty little secrets that go on behind the scenes in the food industry, and what you're consuming when you buy whatever at the grocery store, prepackaged, pre-made, canned, boxed, whatever, or when you go out to eat, like you were talking about earlier, of course, they're going to use cheaper ingredients so that they can do volume, so that they can charge a certain amount to make that profit. And it's just something that we all have to keep in mind, because, I try to preach this, and I try to do the perfect blend of, yes, there are things that we can do. Let's take weight loss that can affect your metabolism. There are supplements, there's the hormones, there's thyroid, everything. We look at your insulin, how you're using your blood sugar. But then there's the things that you can do. And this is where I really tried to drive home the point on this podcast of, just like we're talking about today, cook your own food. Just use simple things to make it easier on yourself, just like James talked about, but do your own cooking, because it's not that hard. And then maybe add in some tips and tricks and little hacks to make it better. But you got to do it yourself, because that might be that one hurdle, that one sticking point that's keeping you from losing weight.
Oh, I mean,
I appreciate that.
I'll use examples. I mean, like, so for the longest time, like every time I do testing, corn comes up for me, and corn is in everything. If everyone, think about it, like there's corn syrup, there's sugars that are corn based, there's oils that are corn based. I mean, corn is in corn starch is in things. It's like, you can't escape corn in this country. And it keeps coming up every time. And I've never really taken it that serious. And just recently I stopped fully. And I started to notice like this chronic kind of like, whenever, it wasn't like all the time, but it was kind of a nagging, kind of would pop up here and there, but it would never go away. I would have this like kind of redness in my skin whenever I shave. And now that I've dropped corn, it's gone.
Oh, Wow.
So isn't it, it's sometimes these little things that you just don't realize you're getting from something. Sometimes it's alcohol for people. If
Yep.
you're using a lot of extracts, for example, there's alcohol in extracts. You might be completely clean and then you're using this one ingredient like a stevia extract or something like that, and it's got alcohol in it, and that's throwing your body up. You don't know unless you get tested. But I'll also say this. So there are ways to make home cooking better and easier. And here's just a couple that you can take. So one is, first of all, environment, right? You want to create an environment that's conducive towards your creativity, towards your a good mood, towards lightness. So
Hmm.
most of us put this pressure on ourselves and we think, well, I have to be a good cook because I eat. Like we expect that because we need to eat food that we're also supposed to be a good cook and we're supposed to love it. And
Hmm.
that's just not the case. Most people hate cooking. They could care less. They don't, it's just fuel for them and they'd rather have someone else do it. And guess what? That's okay. So the key though is then how do we make it so it's not a stressful event for you?
Yep.
One thing you could do, you could listen to your favorite podcast, you could put music on, you create the environment. And it's really important that you actually take that on if you are someone that doesn't like it. So
Yeah.
create an environment that's conducive towards you enjoying yourself, whether that's music, whether that's lighting, like make it nice and bright. Maybe that's also making sure that it's clean, because a lot of people are more inspired when their kitchen is clean versus dirty.
Yeah.
The other thing that's really key is only bringing the food in your house that you want to eat.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
we
That's a
set
rule.
ourselves up, we set ourselves up for failure all the time. And I'm a culprit of this. It's like I know I have no will strength. Like if something is in the house, I'm gonna eat it. Like that's the way it is.
Yeah.
So if I don't want to eat ice cream, or if I don't want to eat certain candy or cookies or chips, I just don't bring it into the house, because I don't want it so bad that I'm going to then, trek to the store to go get it. I'm just not like
Right.
it. But if it's in your house, you will find a way to reason it into your mouth. You'll be like, I deserve it today, or whatever it is. Like somehow I will reason it and I'll get it into my mouth, and I'll somehow also get this mentality of like, I have to finish the entire bag today or it's wasted, so it's just stupid, but that's what we do. We create realities in our stories in our head that dictate our choices. So remove that stimulus by not even bringing it in your house. And then lastly, I would say, and this is a really, this is a tip that most people don't incorporate, but it truly does move the needle the most, is meal plan.
Hmm.
All you got to do is take one day of the week. You can go through your favorite cookbook. You can grab one of those Bon Appetit magazines, whatever you want. Pick meals. All you got to do is focus on dinners. Just pick dinners, base them on your schedule. So let's just say Tuesday, you know that you have a really busy day. You know that you're not going to have any time to stop to prepare or cook. What you can do is you can do a slow cooker that day. Like plan your meal according to your schedule. So like if I'm just completely on in meetings all day and I know I really am going to go through my whole day and I need food to be ready when I'm done, I put everything in a slow cooker or pressure cooker in the morning. I time it, I set it, it's done when I'm done. And then what I do is I throw in some dark leafy greens right at the end. I take the lid off, throw in the dark leaf greens, I cover it, and I just let the residual heat from it to wilt those greens, and it's a full meal ready to go. So and you can do that with anything, but if you meal plan, what's beautiful about it is it works to your schedule. You're creating a grocery list that's not based on emotional choices or like quick buys. You're basing on what you're going to use. You go to that grocery store, you're not buying anything that's not on that list, so you're not going to bring in the junk because that's not in your meal plan.
Hmm.
And then here's the big one. There's no decision fatigue. There's no poor choices, because what happens is we spend our entire day making decisions. By the end of the day, we are fatigued. We cannot make another one.
Yep.
You've already made the decision of what you're eating. So there's no kind of like, oh, I didn't plan dinner, let's get a pizza. Or, oh, let's go out to eat. There's none of that, because you already planned it. You already have it in house. It's ready to go. And you don't have to complicate it. Like a lot of people think they have to have a different thing every day. It's like, no, you don't.
You know.
You could cook a whole chicken on Monday, right? Eat it that night, The next day with your leftovers is chicken salad for lunch, or you can make, and then you could technically make chicken soup for dinner. Like, or if you're just like pressed for time, just have chicken again, like just heat it up and eat chicken straight.
Right.
Like that whole chicken can last you 2 to 3 days, depending on how many people in your family. And
Yep.
you could do that with every meal. You could cook more than you need and just have the exact same meal the next day.
100%. Oh my God. That was so well said, because there is a rule in nutrition that says, going back to your point number 2, that says if it's in the house, you will eat it. So why not just, going to your point number 3, have the food in the house that is healthy, that's what you start eating. And that's what you accustom your taste buds even to eat. So instead of the processed foods that literally change what we crave, the sugars that change what we crave, we get back to that ancestral eating of eating and enjoying real food. I mean, it's so well said. So I want to piggyback that on how to make our food taste better by using pluck. But before we get into it, I want to tell the audience how I met James. I saw a presentation that he was giving at an event that we were both at together. And I was just so intrigued by the points he was making regarding organ meats and the benefits they have to the body, all the systems of the body, and then what he produced. So this is not a sponsored episode. I asked James to come on so that you guys could hear the benefits of organ meats. And then we wanted to kind of piggyback on to healthy eating, because he's a freaking chef. So why not get advice from a chef on what you can do like he just gave you? But James created, and I'll let him kind of explain it more because I don't want to bastardize it, but James created a way that we can get our organ meats while flavoring our food at the same time. And I know you're coming out even with snacks and all of that, because that to me seems way easier. I've used it in stir fries, on casseroles, in my meatloaf, on my burgers, on my steak, in my salad dressing with a zesty garlic. I've used your product now and I love it. So I'm like, we kind of need to tell people about this, because this is such a simple way. Instead of spending boatloads of money on one more supplement, now you're taking six capsules on top of the 20 that you're already taking that maybe you need, your vitamin D, your magnesium, all of that. Now you got 6 more in the organ meats because you heard it was good for you. Let's eliminate that. Let's save some money. Let's enhance the flavors of your food. How did you even come up with, let's put the organ meats in a packet that people can put on their food?
Sometimes I sit in awe myself, because it's just incredible that I was able to come up with a product that is real food based that no one else had figured out. And I'm just taking 2 ingredients that other people are already using, but I combine them in a way that no one had done before. And I also, I'm just so grateful, because I use this product. I need it. I have 2 kids. I want it in their diet and they love it. Like, so this is very much like, you remember those commercials of that? It was like the warehouse suits or whatever. And the guy would always get up there and say, I'm not just the president, I'm also a user or a customer or whatever. Like, that's how that's how I feel. Cause my family, we use this every day. And my kids ask for it. And so it all stems back to being, what I talked about earlier, being a chef who recognized that the way I'm going to move the needle with people is to make sure that comfort foods taste better, right? So I'm always thinking about how can I incorporate these nutrient-dense foods, but in ways that are effortless. Because really what I've learned in these 20 years is that the thing that moves health is this thing that we do every day, right? A little bit every day. I don't even care if it's a lot, a little, doesn't matter. But the things we do every day are what truly move the needle. So how do I get someone to do something every day? Well, when it comes to food, it's got to hit 2 markers. It's got to be easy and it's got to be delicious. It can't be one or the other. It's got to be both. But if I can hit both, then that is something you will do every day. And it doesn't matter if COVID 5.0 happens, won't matter, because it's easy and it's delicious. So it serves a bigger purpose for us, right? It's not just about health, or it's not just because a doctor told us to eat it. It's like, no, it's easy and it's delicious. And to your point, it actually makes your food taste better.
Yeah.
So what happens is that, and that's one thing as a father as well, and a parent, I understand this. It's like, when you put time in the kitchen, you want your food to equal the effort you put into it. And sadly, that's not true. Most people put time in the kitchen, 30 minutes to an hour, sometimes to 2 hours, and then the food doesn't taste as good as, the time you spent putting it together. That's just the
Right.
reality. It just, we end up feeling disappointed or making excuses for it.
Right.
And I'm not here to tell you, oh, well, you shouldn't make excuses. I'm here to say, like, we can make it even easier, because the minute you use pluck on that food, you'll elevate the flavor. And the reason is because organ meats are in pluck, and organ meats have what's called umami. So we have four tastes that we grew up all learning about, which is bitter, sweet, salty, and sour. But there's a fifth called umami. And it's kind of explained. Umami is kind of savory, meaty. There's lots of foods that have umami, like tomatoes have umami, mushrooms have umami. Umami exists in meat even, but it's not as in organ meats, it's very pronounced. And when you add umami to food, it just makes the other flavors brighten. It just pops the flavor. And you're probably already noticing that when you add it to your food, it enhances everything.
Yep.
And then you take my chef knowledge of when I was putting the spice together, and I'm adding like lemon peel, I'm adding onion, I'm adding things to kind of support that umami, but offset the organy taste, that kind of irony or mineral taste that comes from organs. So I'm offsetting all of that. And what you get is you get a seasoning, or what we call like an ancestral superfood powder, but you get this powder that when you add it to food, it just heightens this flavor. But the thing you don't get is like a mouthful of organ meat. Like, so you
Right.
don't feel like, oh, I'm eating organ meat. What you feel like is I'm just eating a really good seasoning. And you're getting, though, the micronutrients, or what we call the microdosing of those nutrients when you use it.
Mm-hmm.
And the power of having something that can be used, it's shelf stable. So it lasts for a year. And if you're buying our Pluck Pure, it's 2 years. But so it lasts a long time. But the other thing is because you don't have to cook it, and it's just something you can add to anything. You literally can add it to anything. So like my kids put it on popcorn, they put it on toast, we put it on fish, we put it on chicken, we put it on rice. I mean, you name it, oysters. I mean, it's so versatile. You can even put it on to-go food. Like if we eat out, we get pizza. Like every parent has that, where you eat pizza sometimes, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
and you sometimes feel like, it's not very nutritious. Pizza's really like not the best. But if you add pluck to it, you feel a little bit better, So there's this element of like, I'm adding flavor and I'm adding this nutrition that I was not getting before. So it's just, to me, it's a win-win.
That's a total win-win. I love that you combine this with your chef knowledge of knowing what goes with what and what enhances what. So, I mean, to me, it just seems so simple. I think this is a great way. Again, taking all the tips that James just gave you, this is a great way for people to up level cooking at home, but also up level their health. Like you said, all these tiny little things that we do, it all works together. It all works together to make changes and shifts in your longevity and your overall health and well-being. So to me, it's a no-brainer. That's why I wanted to bring you on, because I think this is a very inexpensive, convenient, flavorful way for people to up-level everything.
Thank you. I just appreciate, you supporting, amplifying the message, because ultimately the mission is to help people get whole animal into their diet. We are in the process. So I mentioned Pluck has 5 organs. It's got liver, heart, kidney, spleen, and pancreas. Mm-hmm. Pancreas is an interesting one because pancreas has natural enzymes. So by adding pancreas to the mix, we're actually supporting the digestion of that food. Because a lot of people, as I'm sure you share with your clients or your audiences, a lot of people have trouble with digestion because the stress of our lives lowers our hydrochloric acid. There's so many aspects of life where you just don't have the digestive properties that you would naturally, due to your environment and or the stress and or what you're eating. So having pancreas in there actually supports natural digestion, which is really cool. Yep. But we're going to be adding lung to it, and we're also going to add bone marrow, and which I'm super excited, because for me, it's like, once again, like supports like. So however I can support people in getting more nutrients into these more of these organs into their diet, but get it so easily and deliciously, then that's the mission.
I love it. I love it. So we'll put the links in the show notes, but can you tell people where they can get their hands on some pluck and where they can find you and follow you, and any, like, if you're cooking on Instagram, they can always watch you do your thing and like take the tips into their own kitchen, their own life.
There are definitely I've done a lot of videos out there with some really fun tips and tricks. We don't have those. So eatpluck.com is where you're going to find about pluck.
Mm-hmm.
We have tons of recipes on there. You're going to find us on socials at Eat Pluck. You're going to find me at Chef James Berry with an A. But if you do a search for me, you will find these videos. Some of them are on this site called Eat Naked Kitchen. Some are under Kids Can Cook or Don't Yuck My Yum. I mean, I've been in the business so long that I've kind of like rebranded, changed all these things over the years. But yeah, there's some really fun ones out there. It's exciting because, I when I started out, I was doing a lot of the things that are now popular, so when I was doing them, no one was doing them. And now they're very popular. So it's exciting to see people start looking at health in different ways, and that you can use real food to incorporate flavor into your diet without just defaulting to more sugar or more salt or more this or that. And like I like to use the example of, like, even we were talking about dressings earlier, like a lot of people default to just adding sugar when something gets bitter, when the flavor gets bitter. It's sugar or sour, but sugar helps to kind of offset that. Well, if you're making, let's say, a dressing, instead of adding sugar, you can just use a date, just a single date, which is a real food. It's just a dried fruit. And, but you use one and you blend it, and then now your food's a little sweeter, if you need it. But I'm just a big fan of the more you can kind of use those real foods as the ingredients to offset or to add flavor, you'll see. And then included in that is try to buy food that's in season, because 85% of cooking is the food you pick, when you pick it, how ripe it is. Ripe food or food that's in season is always going to be more flavorful than the food that isn't, always.
Yeah, beautiful.
So I hope this has helped everyone, and please reach out if you have any other questions, and we can always do an even deeper dive into, kitchen hacks and tips. There's so many.
I love it. We'll do that. James, thank you so much for your time today. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.